At you, only on 933 KFM.
Welcome back this edition of the 933 KFM Hot Seat, brought to you by Nile Gold. The coffee we drink is supplied by Ban Cafe. Hot issues on the hot seat is what we're calling this discussion, with Nobert Mao, President General of the Democratic Party, also commonly known as Chairman Mao, and Angelo Izama, who joined us along the way and will be joining in the discussion. The show is you can join us in this discussion by sending us messages on 6933 or send them via our Facebook wall, and we'll read them out on air. I asked you a question just before you took the break. How many of these 7 out of 10 on the scale that you used do your own MPs as the Democratic Party take?
You know, Charles, you are being naughty. I don't want to pass judgment on my own members of parliament.
You assess them in the party, don't you?
Now, obviously, as you know, our performance in the last election as DP was not very good, and indeed a defining feature of our parliamentary group is that they are all from Buganda. It is almost like the National Development Party of Raila Odinga, where virtually all the MPs were from Nyanza province, apart from a few from other places. So I gave 7 out of 10 on representation. I think our MPs have been at the forefront. Betty Namboze has been very loud on airing grievances about Kampala Capital City Authority. She has been speaking very loudly about corruption, and she is so far the only MP who has actually said this 103 million shillings should not be there
for the cars.
For the cars. I understand during the opposition MP's retreat, she was booed for that kind of heresy, if I may call it that, because
that was in Ginger.
Yeah,
about a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and Medad Segona, the few times he has spoken, has been very articulate on a number of important issues. Joseph Sewungu is actually the flag bearer of the teachers of this country. He has embraced that topic and he has made it his specialty. So I could say our members of parliament are contributing to that.
The 3 out of 13 you pointed out.
Those are the ones that have been, I'm naming those who are outstanding in terms of representation. Otherwise, many of them are still new. Brenda is still very new. I think she has not even had the chance. Parliament is over 370 MPs.
There are 386. When you look at the listing on the Parliament website, their contacts,
including the ex-official,
officials, yes.
Yeah. Now, out of 386, all jostling for the attention of the Speaker. So, I would excuse the newer members. Susan Namaganda is still very new. Of course, there are veterans like Latif Sebagala, like Mudu Aulira, like Issa Chikungwe and JB Mutebi. These are veterans who have been in parliament. Some are serving their 3rd term actually. But
meaning they have received 3 cars, including the latest.
I don't know. Many of the MPs have said they don't want to buy cars. I was in Mityana over the weekend, and the MP for Mityana South, Mr. Kadu Mukasa, was putting the issue to a kind of village referendum.
A town hall meeting.
Yes. He asked a provocative question. You know this money will be stolen if I don't get it. Would you rather that I receive it, or should I leave it there to be stolen by you know who? The opinion was mixed. I think that is splitting hairs. And others are saying LC5s get cars. I was an LC5 chairman. I never got a personal car. The day I handed over in May last year, I also handed over the car. I have had FDC Secretary General Ali Salaso saying, actually on this very show, you were pinning them down and they were really having a rough time. And she said, if Parliament is going to give me a car and a driver and to fuel it, I'm happy to use the car and hand it over at the end of my 5 years. But Uganda is not the only parliament in the world. I think we need to look at what is happening elsewhere. In my term, when I was a member of parliament, we were given loans which we had to repay. The government made a contribution towards the car, not the full price. I think the government at that time contributed 18 million, if I remember correctly. But
and accessed your loans to buy cars of your choice.
Yes, and people bought vehicles. So I think the formula needs to be discussed. Now, that is not a topic that any parliament wants to discuss. Now, before you stop,
can I take you back to the question of the credibility of the 9th Parliament? The people, the Speaker has hinted on something. Speaker Rebecca Kadaga has hinted on something, that these are deliberate leaks aimed at tarnishing and distracting the 9th Parliament from the robustness and strong position it had started handling issues since their term started.
Well, the whole thing is intended to pour cold water on the morale of Parliament, because as an MP, as you fight corruption, you don't want to be seen to be increasing the cost of public administration, because that's one of the issues. Now, I was telling you that President Museveni has been very smart. He came from Kasese after detonating a bomb there, saying, don't blame the Minister of Energy,
blame me.
I am the one. So if you are fighting over this issue, make no mistake, you are fighting the President of the Republic. So that in itself has scattered the MPs.
General Museveni Sabalwanye. That's what he said.
Secondly, President Museveni is the one who actually leaked these things of the 103.
It's the exact figure 103. I've heard from some civil servants, it's the complete package is about 193.
I don't know, maybe it was an editorial mistake.
Perhaps it's a scandal in waiting.
Yeah,
to be leaked
it may be
a future date.
It may be a scandal in waiting. So I think President Museveni wanted to go to Parliament when he is on a morally higher ground, saying you are no better than any of the people you are criticizing. So the leakage, I believe, was orchestrated from State House.
I was interviewing editors in the Daily Monitor newsroom, which broke the story, and they told me this story actually leaked from was first discovered from the opposition A4C group meeting, where you say Namboze was booed, and they did the investigation and found that and broke the story. That it wasn't a leak from anyone, especially anyone in the state.
Well, I am just suspicious because I know how President Museveni's State House operates, but you will not put it past them. Anyhow, the point I'm trying to make is that when President Museveni went to address Parliament, he was feeling morally superior to the MPs. First, he was saying, you guys who say we should fight corruption and reduce government expenditure, look at the package you are receiving. But more importantly, he was basically saying the economy is doing badly, we cannot keep waiting around. And what President Museveni did is what in America is called the bully pulpit. A president goes to the battlefront in Parliament, and basically he was not talking to Parliament, he was talking to Ugandans. Parliament was just a sounding board. The points he tried to make, not very successfully, was simply to say we need oil money to start flowing quickly, and Parliament should not stand in the way. Secondly, I care as much about the economic well-being of Ugandans as anybody else. And then thirdly, I did nothing wrong, I did nothing illegal by ordering the signing.
Is he actually succeeding in weakening Parliament's position?
Parliament is not as strong on this oil debate. That's why I was saying, until Parliament takes on President Museveni directly, to impeach a president, you need 30% of MPs to sign. I actually think it is possible to gather 30% of signatures to impeach the president. I don't know whether there are enough MPs with the stomach lining to go the next step. But to put the motion on the floor of the House, I do believe that members of Parliament can do that. Now,
why impeach the president?
You know, there are many grounds. And now I'm speaking as an interested party. Let me declare my interest. I had so far attempted to be a kind of disinterested commentator. But let me say, raiding the treasury. You know that the governor of the Central Bank of Kuwait resigned this week, I think last week. And he said he's resigning because the government is pushing the economy in the wrong direction, forcing the central bank to do things that undermine the long-term interests of the Kuwaiti people. Actually, Governor Tumusime Mutebile should resign, because the Governor Tumusime Mutebile has said as much as the governor of the Kuwaiti Central Bank. So, raiding the central reserves is actually a ground for impeachment, because it was an unauthorized expenditure. That's actually where the parliament can get President Museveni. Even if you have a parliament of sycophants, whether you call it a rubber stamp, you must still bring public expenditure for them to rubber stamp. If you spend before they have rubber stamped, that in itself is illegal. And budget is a function of the presidency. He only delegates it to the Minister of Finance. So that is one very important ground for impeaching the president. The second one is stewardship. You know, failing to sack those whose names have been associated with cases of corruption, keeping them in the cabinet. I do believe that that is a second ground for impeaching.
He'll argue that nothing has been proved against them. They're just allegations.
You know, some of these cases are supposed to be about perception. I think it is very expensive for the president to run government now, and very tiresome, because every day he has to start by apologizing. That's why when he was running for president this last time round, he was running as if he was an opposition candidate. He would stand up when issues are raised about roads, and he says, I have no problem. I have been sending the money. Where is the cow? What happened? He asks some poor LC5 chairmen were made to stand up. Then they say, how much did we send you last financial year? And people hear 10 billion, and you know,
district engineers and NADS coordinators were the most in trouble.
Yes, so the most important ground really is unauthorized expenditure of public funds. I think that one can stand in an objective debate, and it can be
Is there room for an objective debate, especially on the presidency in the Ugandan parliament, you think?
It can be created. You know, the parliament in which I sat, which was still a movement kind of parliament, it was very difficult to even associate President Museveni with corruption.
That was the 6th parliament or the 7th?
It was the 6th parliament. I was in both, but I one day dared to ask a question in parliament, and they said, fish rods from the head. Is the president clean? That's how far I got before, you know. People started objecting, and some of the people who were objecting are now with us in the opposition. I remember one of them was saying, the president is above board.
Which one was that?
The 6th parliament.
Which one? You said one of them was saying the president was
Actually,
above?
It is none other than Winnie Byanyima, who stood up and said, the president is above board. You can't talk about the president like that, you know. So I agree when many of them now say they were deceived by the president.
Let's come back to the issues. We veered off a little bit on Parliament and the accountability of your own MPs. We'll come back to that after a short break, and then we'll look at the ability of the 9th Parliament to maintain high ground, especially with all these things hanging around them and their finances and what they're taking from the treasury.
We could do an harambe for their cars.
We'll be right back.
As citizens.